A second secret nuclear enrichment facility.
One of the things the Iranians learned from the North Koreans was to bury their facilities, hiding them from the view of satellites and overhead imagery.
More and more of these clandestine sites are coming to light, but it has to be understood that the network of Iran's nuclear weapons program is quite large, and there must be many, many sites that are not disclosed so far.
Another cause for alarm is Iran's unexplained enrichment of uranium and plutonium, well beyond the levels necessary for a peaceful nuclear energy program.
And Iran is in the news tonight. Nuclear experts have found unexplained traces of plutonium and highly enriched uranium in a nuclear waste facility in Iran.
Iran is enriching uranium, and we don't have any explanation for the use of this enriched uranium.
No matter how many resolutions are passed, Islamic Republic of Iran will not stop its enrichment activities.
You are not going after a nuclear bomb.
Definitely not.
Hate
this weapon.
The IRGC reached out to the Pakistani so-called father of the bomb, A.Q. Khan, and obtained blueprints for warhead design.
We know that they have laboratories that are working on some kind of high explosive implosion work.
Recently uncovered documents have revealed the development of detonation devices.
The document talks of a 4-year Iranian program to develop a neutron initiator, a highly specialized component of a nuclear detonator.
This had no civil application. The only conclusion we could reach is that this was part of a plan to develop at least the capability to be able to build this part for a nuclear weapons program.
For years, the Iranian government has failed to live up to its obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It has violated its commitments to the International Atomic Energy Agency. It has ignored UN Security Council resolutions. And while Iran's leaders hide behind outlandish rhetoric, their actions have been deeply troubling.
It's not just a failure of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, but rather the fact that a dangerous regime committed to the Islamic Jihad in the world is now coming into possession of deliverable nuclear weapons.
If Iran develops a nuclear weapon, even a small, very primitive one that they just detonate in the desert and have a small mushroom cloud and some radioactivity, that makes them a nuclear power, even one test.
The leverage that they gain once they have the capability changes the balance in the region and around the world without even having to use the weapon.
It could essentially hold hostage other states to its desires.
The Iranians could tell their neighbors, you will not export X, Y, and Z, or a certain amount of oil, and the regimes are going to have to say, yes, sir.
Crude prices have now breached the $120 a barrel level for various reasons. The markets are worried about a disruption in supplies from Iran.
When these countries disrupt oil supplies or cause volatility or even issue warnings about what they're going to do in response to certain foreign policy actions, that causes a great deal of volatility in the oil market, causes prices to go up.
War games in the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway for the movement of global oil exports.
Nearly half of the world's oil supply travels on ship through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow gateway to the Persian Gulf along Iran's coast.
Iran has said if attacked, it could close the Strait of Hormuz.
They could theoretically, and with a surface missile, cover the straits and destroy ships going through there.
The temporary cutoff under those circumstances would be something that would shove the price of oil very high.
Iranian nuclear weapons can significantly limit the ability to counterattacks on shipping lanes and to provide protection to surrounding nations.
Newly leaked diplomatic cables posted on WikiLeaks show Middle East powers like Saudi Arabia don't trust Iran and fear that Iran will soon threaten them with a nuclear bomb. Similar comments came from the leaders of Bahrain and UAE.
Iran's neighbors are looking for reassurance that we will be there for them if something goes wrong. And frankly, they're very scared that we won't be. These regimes want to survive. And that means that if we will not be there, they'll have to look elsewhere.
A nuclear-armed Iran with a deliverable weapons system is going to spark an arms race in the Middle East and the greater region.
Countries in that region who must protect themselves and their people will begin to want to acquire their own capability.
We'll have another nuclear arms race with all kinds of undemocratic countries getting nuclear weapons, and have the Saudis wanting it, the Egyptians wanting it, and other countries as well.
إذا ما ثبت أن هناك برنامج نووي عسكري إيراني فنحن نرى أن هذا البرنامج يمثل تهديدا للاستقرار في الشرق الأوسط، لأنه سوف يدفع بأطراف جديدة للدخول في المجال النووي العسكري.
While Iran poses a threat to countries across the region, one nation has been singled out above the rest.
اسرائیل یک قده سرطانی است. خب قده سرطانی رو چیکار میکنن؟ غیر از قطع قده چه علاجی میتوان برای او کرد؟
Taking aim once again at Israel, Ahmadinejad told an audience that, quote, this origin of corruption will soon be wiped off the earth's face.
You have a president of Iran that threatens to wipe a democracy and one of America's strongest allies on the planet, wipe it from the map. Now, if that isn't a wake-up call to the rest of the world, I don't know what is.
Whenever Iran has developed a new weapon that can be used against Israel, they've shipped it to Hezbollah. Now, those missiles give Iran, through Hezbollah, the capability of hitting any target in Israel and hitting it with a very large warhead.
Once the Iranian missiles are up and running on launching pads in Lebanon, they can reach not just Israel, they can reach Western targets. So we are talking about an expansion of Iran in the entire Eastern Mediterranean region, something that has not happened even during the Cold War under the Soviet threat.
In 1998, the Iranians carried out a test to launch a Scud missile from a barge in the Caspian Sea. Many people believe that this is what the Iranians would like to do with the United States, put a missile in a cargo ship going off of our coast and attack Baltimore, attack New York, attack Washington, D.C. From 100 miles off our coast, would never see it.
You can put it on a ship, and you can sail that ship into New York Harbor and blow it up. You have no real way of stopping that, because how do you know which of the thousands of ships that move around has that device on it?
95% of U.S. trade is handled at ports similar to this one on New York's Staten Island. But only 5% of these containers are visually inspected.
They could use such a weapon in some covert way, say on a Hezbollah crewed fishing boat in some port somewhere in the world.
Another scenario, clearly, is to bring a small, man-portable nuclear weapon, a backpack nuclear weapon, across the Mexican border, which is, most Americans understand, is not very well protected.
Hezbollah has been making linkages with Mexican drug cartels, not to compete with them in narcotics trade, but rather to use their already established channels of entry into the United States, up from Mexico, through the United States, and all the way on up even into Canada.
The terrorist organization Hezbollah has been using Mexican drug smuggling routes to enter the U.S.
Correct. It is the same Hezbollah that is funded by Iran. These are wings of Hezbollah criminal enterprises working in Latin America. They can certainly sneak over radioactive material. They can sneak over people. It's just that easy.
No question that identifying and tracking Hezbollah here inside the United States is a very high priority of the FBI.
Tomorrow you could have Hezbollah attacking the United States in the United States. If Iran has nuclear weapons, do you see the President of the United States calling up in Tehran and saying, you've just attacked us, we're going to launch a counterstrike on your territory? I can hear Ahmadinejad or another Iranian president saying, well, Mr. President, make my day.
The United States is extremely vulnerable. We're an open society. We're spread out. We have harbors, we have two coasts, we have rivers. And we are susceptible to a deadly attack, either by terrorists with a nuclear weapon provided by Iran, or by some delivery system they manage to cobble together, whether it's conventional or EMP or whatever it is.
When Mahmoud Ahmadinejad talks about a world without America not only being desirable but achievable, he could mean probably one thing, and that is what's known as a strategic electromagnetic pulse attack.
An electromagnetic pulse weapon is essentially a nuclear weapon that is exploded in the atmosphere up above. It doesn't hit the ground, it's exploded up in the air. It sends out pulse waves, shock waves.
You have to understand what this pulse is. It's tremendously high energy. Every wire will pick up this pulse, take the energy, and burn out whatever's at the end.
An EMP weapon, meaning a small nuclear bomb, detonated above the center of the United States would literally take down the entire power grid of this country.
Not only would the power grid be out, it would be out for probably months, but every piece of electronics that we use, from pacemakers to phones to cars to gasoline pumps to water pumps, would all be fried.
The Blue Ribbon Commission established by the Congress concluded that this was an eminently achievable way of effecting catastrophic effects on the United States, specifically devastating the electrical grid of this country, and with it all of the infrastructures that depend upon it: food, water, sewage, medical, commercial, financial, transportation. According to the chairman of this Blue Ribbon Commission, within a year, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead as a result of exposure, starvation, disease.
This country would cease to exist as we know it.
When you combine that with the stated purpose of bringing about a world without America, it's a very dangerous set of developments.
There is a sort of cultural relativism in the West which makes people reluctant to condemn, particularly to condemn another civilization. We must be nice to them. We must be tolerant, we must be understanding, and so forth. But this should not go to the level of blinding ourselves to the more painful realities of the situation.
Americans and Europeans are really uncomfortable with the idea of holy wars and mass murder for religious reasons. They can't imagine themselves slaughtering other human beings because the true religion needs to defeat the enemies of God. Because they can't imagine that for themselves, they also can't imagine that others behave that way. But this is a failure of imagination.
این نهضت باید زنده بماند و زنده ماندنش به این خون ریزه هاست. بریزید خونها را.
If you have those profound, strongly held religious beliefs, you send people to the deaths, you're doing them a favor. You're giving them a quick free pass to heaven and all its delights. And we saw that during the Iraq-Iran war, when they were willing to send hundreds of children to walk into the minefields to clear them for them.
The red headbands of this martyrs brigade promise immediate entry into heaven. No small consideration for these youths who may be called upon to walk through Iraqi minefields. Human detectors clearing the way for tanks and regular troops.
Waves of young boys who volunteered to become martyrs, clearing minefields by running across them.
تا وقتی در قاموس ما، در فرهنگ ما، در منطق ما شهادت در همین سطح از اعتبار نخواهد توانست بر جمهوری اسلامی و ملت ایران فائق بیاد.
و کدوم هنرمندی و هنرنمایی زیباتر و الهیتر و ماندگارتر از هنر شهادت؟ مثلا ملتی که شهادت داره اسارت نداره. اونایی که میخوان اینو بزنن دارن پایه های استقلال و امنیت ملی ما رو میزنن، پایه های ماندگاری ما رو میزنن.
In Islam, as in Christianity, as in Judaism, there is what you might call an end of time scenario, in which the Mahdi, the descendant of the Prophet, returns